All right, guys, what's going on? Welcome back to the Everything College Football Podcast. Dave, me, Nick, here going to be doing our 2022 preview and prediction for the Michigan State Spartans. Mel Tucker back for his third year, 11-2 last season. Jay Johnson, offensive coordinator for the third season, and Scotty Hazelton, he's also back for his third season, as this coaching staff has really stayed in place, and now these guys are very successful as they're coming off the most wins since 2015. This program is down in the dumps. Mel Tucker, this past season, though, worked wonders. Did a lot of good things in the portal. He's recruiting well. 26th recruiting class here this past off season. Looking at this offense, pretty good one last year. I think this was the biggest part of their turnaround. And it started with Payton Thorne, 3,200 yards, 27 touchdowns as a freshman. Showcased plenty of poise. Thorne, he obviously had this phenomenal backfield led by Kenneth Walker. I really liked this offense last year. I liked what Thorne did. I thought Anthony Russo, the veteran, he was a fifth-year senior. I thought he was going to be the starter. This guy comes in, beats him out. What are your early impressions of Thorne, and what are your expectations for him in 22?
I love what Thorne did last year. The 27 touchdowns was really impressive as a freshman. He came in, kind of dominated, took over control. I think he continued to improve himself here. He can build off of last year, maybe raise that completion percentage a little bit, 60% completion percentage as well. But the 27 touchdowns to the 10 interceptions, it was very impressive for the freshman. He looked composed all year. He looked confident. He looked like he was ready to dominate out there. He had help from his backfield, like you said. We'll touch on Kenneth Walker, who left, obviously. But in general, I think Thorne is such a talented player, and he's ready to take that step forward and lead this team to further greatness.
Of course, Kenneth Walker transfers from Wake Forest, wins the Doak Walker Award, the nation's top back. They replaced him with two more transfers, two good ones, Jalen Berger, Jarrett Broussard, 5'9", 185. Both of these guys in 2020 performed very well at their respective schools. Broussard was the 2020 Pac-12 Player of the Year, and then Berger, he was very impactful for a lifeless Wisconsin offense that year. The few games he played in, he had 100-plus in almost all of them. They averaged 175 yards on the ground last season. The biggest problem with this offense, though, is when they struggled to run the ball, they couldn't pass either. This offense only seemed to thrive when they had balance. Now, that wasn't the case in the bowl game, but during regular season, Ohio State, Nebraska, Indiana, they couldn't really run the ball that well. The passing game suffered. So, I know nothing went right against Ohio State, but that's still a common theme I saw. What are your thoughts on Michigan State? And do you think they have to correct that for this offense to be successful? Because it was wildly last year despite some inefficiencies.
It's definitely important that they get that balance. They need to balance the run and pass, because when they start to rely on the run too much, it becomes a problem. And if the run's not working out, they have to go to the pass. And Thorne was a little uncomfortable and found himself in some tricky situations, especially against Ohio State. Like you said, it's a bit difficult for it. I think that they have these two backs. They can kind of balance this better last year. Of course, Kenneth Walker dominated, like you said, winning the awards that he won and being a draft pick in the NFL draft. But I think having the balance between Broussard and Berger will allow them to sort of balance the load, spread it out between the two of them, so they don't have to focus as much on the passing if that needs to get to that situation. But I also think that the wide receiving room has potential to step up here, and we'll touch on that in a second, and maybe they'll be able to relieve those backs of the pressure early on in the season.
Yeah, those games were two of the worst on offense, at least from a points standpoint. Well, I guess those three scored 23 and 20 points respectively. In those games, they won by 5 points or less. So it was obviously a massive issue for them when they could not run. Pass was not working either, and this offense suffered tremendously. So I think that's hopefully something Jay Johnson, this offense, circled. And I'm not the only one noticing it, because it was certainly an issue. Think of the receiving core you're talking about, though. Jayden Raid, he's back. Big playability as a pass catcher and a return man. He saved the day against Nebraska with a punt return late in that one, 1,000-plus yards. He also saved the day against Pittsburgh, too. Had a great reception there. 10 touchdowns on the year. Also get back Trey Mosley, 35 grabs, 530 yards. Pretty good production from them, too. And Jalen Naylor, he's the only one gone. They get these two important pass catchers back, one of the better duos in the conference. There's not a lot of depth, though, in this receiving core. Keon Coleman, 6'4", 210. They're looking to get a lot out of him. He's good. Jumping explosion. Needs to add some speed, but he's a three-sport athlete. Again, he's got that great vertical, so there's a guy right there they're looking forward to. And an acrobatic pass catcher in Montori Foster. Outside of that, there's not many names I'm circling in this receiving core outside of Daniel Baker, the Illinois transfer at tight end. Depth is certainly a concern here in this receiving core. Are you worried about that, or do you think this running game has enough to potentially take off the load of this passing game if they get beat up?
The depth definitely worries me a little bit, but I think, like you said, the running backs can definitely take off the load if necessary, and they can balance this attack for Michigan State and have that reliance on the run, but also be able to bail out with the passing if necessary. I love Jayden Raid. I love the explosiveness and dynamic, especially in the special teams as well. He can really do it both. I like a type of player with that type of talent like that. Foster, like you said, I love the big play. I love the big play ability from him, just to see if we can see him step up a little bit this year. Played a limited role last year, 12 receptions, 164 yards, and 1 touchdown. I think they have potential on offense with these wide receivers to step up and make some plays.
And looking at the offensive line, this is a very good group last year. They lose 8 guys this offseason. Some went to the draft, some, transferred out, some graduated. That's a lot of guys to lose, but this was a very deep group last year. They didn't exactly have this luxury now this fall, but they have a lot of experience still. Garrett Horst, 38 career starts at left tackle. I was impressed with him last year. Brian Green, a Wazoo transfer, plenty of experience. So does J.D. Duplin, Matt Carrick. This interior offensive line, I think they're going to be really good this year. They got the experience. They got the players. Everyone started the slate as a junior or older, so despite losing 8 guys, they still have plenty of experience to go around. I don't know how Mel Tucker worked that out, but this is a very deep group, and I think they're set up for success here this fall in the trenches.
Like you said, Mel Tucker has been really great at the portal, and grabbing Brian Green from Wazoo is a very underrated addition. I think he has some serious potential to slot in. I love the experience on this offensive line. Very veteran core here, and I think they have potential here to be as strong as they were last year.
And speaking of the trenches, you look to the defensive side of the ball. I love this defensive line. Maverick Hanson, 6'4", 310. Was impressed by him. He had 6 tackles for loss. Simeon Barrow performed very well. Jacob Slade, he had 40 tackles. He was one of the top players on this team a season ago. I don't think he got enough credit for his impact last year. This is his 5th season now. Jaylen Hunt, 6'4", 320. So these guys have some really good size. And then the pass rushing group, Jeff Petrowski, 6'1", 250, 5.5 sacks, 3 forced fumbles. And Chris Bogle, he joins a veteran D-line coming over from Florida. These guys also had a very good run defense in 2021. I think this defensive line, they're going to continue to get better. They're not exactly deep in terms of their pass rushing unit, but they have 2 quality starters. The interior defensive line, though, I'm very happy with their depth and their size. What are your thoughts on this unit that performed very well last season?
I liked what Maverick Hanson can do. I thought he was very talented. I like the way that he returns. I think they have enough talent for this team. I think they can really start to produce some more and make that step up. I liked what they could do on the fast break. I thought they were talented enough. I think Slade as well is solid on the interior defensive line. And I really like the potential these two have, Henson and Slade, to kind of step up and bounce off each other and be a solid pairing.
In the middle of the defense, I love what they've done here at linebacker. Mel Tucker's done wonders in the portal. Quavarius Crouch from Tennessee, he had 75 tackles last year. Out to the transfer. I'm not really sure why. Maybe because there's a large collection of talent here. Cal Halliday, though, as a freshman, showed great abilities in coverage, a versatile playmaker. 96 tackles, 5 tackles for loss, 2 fumbles. He also had 2 picks. I believe he had a pick 6 late in that bowl game as well to seal the deal. So he was so good for them all over the field. They picked up 2 more linebackers in Jacoby Windham from UNLV and Aaron Brule from Mississippi State. These guys are both longtime veterans, plenty of production. Brule in his career, 139 tackles, 17.5 tackles for loss. Windham pretty much did that last season. He had 119 stops, 11.5 tackles behind the line. So they have 2 very productive linebackers showing up here in East Lansing, matched with Cal Halliday. And then, they also have some pretty good depth here. Ben Van Sermon and Maoi Gatoy Yati. I really love what they have here at linebacker. What are your thoughts on this middle part of the defense? It's really my favorite part of the whole football team.
I think it's a very deep linebacking core. I like the pick up of Burrow from Mississippi State, another Mel Tucker masterclass from the transfer portal. I think what he can do. Windham as well at UNLV had a really strong season last year, matching the numbers that Burrow put up in just one season. Kyle Halliday, leading the lines here. I think he's so talented. I really like to see what he can do. I think he has potential to be one of the better linebackers in the Big Ten this season. I think he can step up and make a really good performance for himself.
And, discussing the secondary, it was awful last year. I remember weeks before the Ohio State game, I was like, these guys are in trouble. They ranked dead last in pass defense before that game. Figured they'd get exposed, and, man, did they. 400-plus yards and 6 touchdowns. That happened in one half. The game was over in a couple of minutes, really. I mean, it was just a disaster. They ended the year dead last in pass yards per game allowed. The only team in college football that allowed 4K yards passing. It doesn't help that their best player in the secondary is primarily a box safety in Xavier Henderson. He had 96 tackles and 10 tackles for loss. That was both among team highs. But this secondary was so bad last year. This is going to be one of those areas Mel Tucker's going to focus on immensely. I mean, I don't think you can get any worse. They didn't bring many transfers in this year outside of Amir Speed from Georgia. So they pretty much get everyone back. I mean, that could be good news or maybe bad news. I don't know. They do get Ronald Williams, Chester Kimbrough. They're back. Those are former transfers in their own right. Darius Snow, he had 87 tackles. I heard he's moving the linebacker. So they continue to stack in the middle of the defense. But what are they going to do in the secondary, Nick?
Giving up 4,000-plus yards in 2021 is just absolutely disappointing for Michigan State. You hit up the Ohio State game. That game was over after the first minute. It was very disappointing from this team. Amir Speed coming from Georgia. I like that pickup in the portal. I think he has potential. Didn't really work out for him in Athens. And they bring back Xavier Henderson, who was flirting with the NFL draft but ended up coming back to school. Is he going to be able to impress? Like you said, he's more of a box safety. If he is their true best player, he doesn't really fit into the scheme. I'm really concerned with this. I don't think I'm seeing much improvement with this secondary. I mean, it's hard to get worse than giving up 4,000 yards last year. I think they'll improve naturally because I don't know if they can even give up that much again this season. But there just isn't a lot of enthusiasm for the secondary. They didn't make any moves in the transfer portal. It's the one area they really didn't touch outside of picking up speed from Georgia. So I really don't know what to expect. I think it can get better, but it's tough to be worse than what they gave up last year.
So they did have 5 freshmen, and all the transfers they got were from last year. So there's not many new faces in the building that are going to make an immediate impact. But I don't think there's no way Mel Tucker doesn't fix this massive issue. I'd say they cracked the top 100 at least in pass defense. I don't know how much of that. I don't know if that's saying a lot or not. I think it would definitely be very good for this defense, especially since they don't have the depth at pass rush. Things could certainly go south once more, and they could definitely get worse. But these are talented ball players. These guys all transfer from high-end schools, and Henderson's obviously a stud. So we'll see what happens with the secondary. We're trying to be optimistic, but it's very hard to when they were worse than teams like UMass and Duke in the secondary. So it's obviously a big concern. Looking at the schedule preview and the prediction here, just like Michigan, I have their rival going 10-2 as well, with losses to the Wolverines and the Buckeyes here at home. I think it's a pretty easy non-conference. Pretty cool that they go on the road at Washington. That team's not going to be very good, I don't think, but still, I like to see the scheduling from the administration. For Michigan State, though, I think the offense will only continue to get better. The defense as well. Thorne's very young. They have 2 great backs. I'm very excited for the potential of this running game. They returned 9 of those starters on defense. I don't know if I mentioned that earlier. And there's no way the secondary will be as poor as it was a season ago. I don't think Tucker will stand for it to happen. Love the linebacking core. Love the interior defensive line. I think the pass rushing depth, again, is a bit iffy, but this is a really good football team. Again, kind of like their counterpart at Michigan. They should win 9-10 games here this fall.
Scheduling a trip to Seattle is very interesting for me. I like that scheduling from both schools' administration. I think that's a really cool game to see on the schedule. I think they have some potential to struggle against Penn State on November 26th. If I had to pick a game that they could potentially lose out of this and fall to 9-3, I think that would be the one. It might get caught off guard in Happy Valley. But across the board, this is a solid schedule, a normal Big 10 schedule. I like the way Michigan State looks this year. I think they can improve on offense. The secondary has to improve. I think there's no way it gets worse. And the schedule is not too tough. They get nice opponents at home. They don't really have too many road tests, except for heading to the Big House against Michigan. Obviously, that's going to be a tough game. And hosting Ohio State. Ohio State's going to be a high-flying team this year. It'll be difficult to play against them. But 9-3 is kind of where I feel this team will end up. I think they will lose to Penn State towards the on the last day of the season. I think that's going to be a tough game for them on the road. They may get cut off guard there. But 9-3 is a solid season for Mel Tucker and co. in East Lansing.
Yeah, it's a tough game on November 26th. It's the final game of the year. It's hard here in June to predict that game because obviously both of these teams will do certain things throughout the year. But calling it from here, I think they have the advantage in the trenches, and that's why they'll beat Penn State. But obviously that could go either way. Nick, I appreciate you joining me as always.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe. That's it for today. See you next time.